much. Welcome to everybody here and on Zoom. And as Frank said, the Stuarts are a fascinating family, and they will take us all the way through early May, I guess.
Early May.
In 6 sessions. And we think about Scotland and England coming together and what an interesting combination that will be. I don't know if you call it love, hate, but they've had their times. They are the United Kingdom. Not until the end of our class. And of course, there is one capital, London. I don't know if when you go to Edinburgh, if they still like to admit that. So don't bring it up. But strictly speaking, this is one of the very important events. But wait, there's lots more. Because how about we try to have a republic and see how that works out for us? Well, maybe we need to kill a king. And so that is a very important part of English history, and it certainly is to our friends in Ireland. And finally, we note that wonderful college in Virginia that so many of us admire, William and Mary. And if you know of them, then of course you know of the monarchs who gave that school its name. William and Mary are rulers, as we will see, in very late April or early May, who are responsible, in a sense, for what is called constitutional monarchy. As we know, it's not democracy by a long shot, but at least the idea of the limited monarchy and the authority of Parliament will be enshrined. So, and we never forget about those Dutch. Now I've got that on my mind. But the idea, of course, of the influence of the Dutch on the English. All of this, of course, is just part of the story. But the idea of how it all came about and understanding this period, of course, will start us with this poor soul, James the First. Now, Lord, we all can talk about, well, you know, times were tough when I was a child, and you know, that sort of thing. Everybody has their hard luck stories. But I would say having a mother like Mary, Queen of Scots, who may have had her father put to death, that sounds like something out of what, Court TV or Snap? I mean, it's really awful when you think about it, because he was reared essentially without parents and reared by a variety of individuals. So we talk about a childhood that must have been strange. And he was quite an interesting fellow, and we'll have lots to say about him. It is interesting when we think about this individual. And of course, when anyone asks, you always say King James VI of Scotland and King James I of England. And they will not consider you pedantical. They will consider you very bright and very interested in being correct. And so Make sure you remember that. Don't just say King James. No, because he was first King James the Sixth. When did he become King James the Sixth? Well, when his mother headed for England across the border. Isn't that wild? All of the James before had been, I want to be euphemistic, not very successful. Many of them had died at English hands. I hate to say losers, but let's just say that they were not successful in their rule. But we keep using that name, James, so I guess Queen Mary named it after her father. And we'll talk more about genealogical concerns because I know someone here has already studied genealogical charts. I'm so proud of her. And I hope all of you will be the example, follow the example of this would-be historian, and I might add, expert chef. So she has many roles to play. But all of this is to say that now he becomes ruler at 13 months. And Mama's in the lockup across the border. Whether or not she thought about, I wonder how my little baby is. I'm not so sure, but the fact is that she was no longer welcome in her own kingdom for various reasons. And remember, as those of you who were scholars last time will well remember, her husband has already passed away. That was number 2. Darnley. And you say, yeah, I remember that. Of course you do. And not the boyfriend, but just husband. And Darnley, and remember, he was also connected by blood to Queen Mary. We'll let that, and he is the supposed father of James. So I know I don't want to alleged, but it was during his lifetime that the baby was born. Remember, she didn't have much time for a boyfriend, both of them. Enough of last term, we've got to move on. So we understand then that he becomes king at 13 months old. I'm sure you were bright and highly ingenious when you were 13 months, but probably not quite ready to take over. So he was under these agencies, particularly this one. Interesting fellow, isn't he? He was Murray. That's the way they pronounce it. And he was the uncle. You know, uncles get a bad rap sometimes in history, and I'll throw him in too. Basically, he was Mary Queen of Scots' older brother, half brother. Without getting into too much detail, Mary, Queen of Scots, was from the second marriage. This particular individual was, what do we call it? Love child, meaning he was not legitimate. That doesn't mean we don't love you very much, but it does mean that you don't get to be king. And that hurts. So could it mean that you want power and control other ways? Yeah. And you've got your little nephew and, you know, you're rocking him or swaddling or whatever. And you're thinking, yeah, power. Yeah. And he had quite a time. And he may have been responsible for the important marriage of this young boy. Well, he grew up, you know, And they set up a marriage between him and a princess from one of everybody's favorite Norwegian countries, Denmark. Yeah, Scotland and Denmark. I don't know the exact distance. I guess I could look it up, but I think they are relatively close. But politically speaking, Scotland needed all the friends it could get, right? So that became very important. You're Protestant, we're Protestant, let's go. So that, in fact, will become very important for this individual. Unfortunately, and this is from the Edinburgh Kirk right there. Some of you been there, I suspect. This is a beautiful church there in, I don't know what they call it, Midtown Edinburgh, but it's right in there. And I'm thinking, boy, what a sight to be right there in the middle of town. I mean, you normally think about things being religious scenes or that sort of thing, but they have a stained glass showing this individual, James Stuart, the Duke of Marlborough, as he's getting blown away. I mean, this is like November 22nd, right? I mean, it's like, if you can see it right there in the middle, can you imagine that stained glass window? Let's give it to them. But that's supposed to be, I guess, inspirational. You think about the Lord or something like that when you see it. I don't, but I mean, you see he blown away, you know. And then people are going, wow, I'm really touched. But I mean, that's how power goes. And you think, I wonder if those Scots have some anger issues. I wouldn't mess with them because a lot of them, you know, come and go. Scotland's a pretty exciting place. I will call it that. And the countryside is beautiful, as you will agree. You can't beat it for a tourist site, but it's wild. I mean, there's violence everywhere, right? But the clans of Scotland, a law unto themselves. And the power of the monarchy was, shall we say, limited. And it always amazes me. Now, this guy's out of the scene, right? The Earl. That's how you get that nice stained glass, you know, memorial. But that doesn't affect the king, which amazes me that he grows up. He's got the little Dane there ready for marriage. And so I guess he had to take Danish 101, or she had to learn a little Scottish, and becomes a very interesting English queen. So that is this. And again, next time you're in Edinburgh, be sure to go by this church there and see it. Again, don't tell any Scots I said this, but it does seem odd as a stained glass window because it has nothing to do with Lord or his mother or any of the rest. Now, folks, if you were a woman, think about living in this period and getting into that outfit. Now, wouldn't you agree that this could be a little uncomfortable? But I mean, God, think about that. You know, it's like, how long would it take to get into it, and then what could you do in it? I mean, it's like, you wouldn't want to sit down, would you? I mean, it's like, I guess that's why we're seeing it as a queen, because I can't imagine there were many ordinary people who would wear such garb, but that was the style. very 17th century. And then look at the king. He is all done up. There are many reasons to like being in the 21st century, and this is just one of them. I mean, in Tucker History of Style, this is really, it's very, very interesting to think about how people dress. But I think, as far as I'm aware, that this is strictly an upper class kind of dress, because I don't think regular folks had time to put on. You know how long that would take to get into. Whoa. And I'm not sure about comfort. Yeah.
Oh, there's no.
Yeah. And I'm thinking to get it off would be a lot of trouble too. It's not easy at all. So, but there they are. And apparently within reason, they were happy. I mean, whatever that means. But I mean, that could be any time. But anyway, they lasted through their lives as a couple. And here he is in another pose. What an interesting fellow he is. King James, who became Queen Elizabeth's choice to be king, which is weird. I know you're thinking about, but you had my mother killed. I hate you. I hate you. Well, maybe he did, but he got over it. I mean, after all, how was he when his mother died? He doesn't have memories. Gosh, remember Mom and me? We had such fun together. We would go to the park. I don't think it's any of that. And he was already writing her kiss up notes. Don't mean to be ugly, but just, I think he got word from friends in Elizabeth's court, medical updates. You know, it's like, oh, is she not feeling well? You know, that kind of thing. And so he was like, yeah. Oh, is she not feeling, you know, that kind of, a bit of hypocrisy. And he was writing her maybe like 16th century get well cards, you know, things like hope you'll feel better soon, and put a little heart or something like that. Yeah. So Hallmark, it's amazing. We have the notes that he actually wrote. And then eventually she let it be known that he was the choice. She didn't like it, because I don't think she would have liked anybody being her successor. It's not like, it's just she wanted to be there. She wanted to run things. It's not like, oh, yeah, you'll be a great, yeah, I really am worn out. And I just want you to have it all. No. But he accepted it. And boy, he was excited. Again, who can forget we're in the money? I always think about that song every time I think about James becoming now the King of England. You notice I said he only went back one time. And shoot, we all love Scotland and all the tourist sites. And no. Well, you can get that in Yorkshire. Yeah, you can stay in England for that. But the idea is the poverty and misery of Scotland. I'm not saying they don't have that in England too, but not on the scale of Scotland. He had a lot more, shall we call them, creature comforts in England. So he and his young family headed down, and she would become now the Queen of England as well as Scotland, as he would be king. There seemed to be pleasure on the part of many of their, shall we say, new subjects that they were there. Some were not happy, and they were a discontented minority. They were the English Catholics. A certain person in here will light up when I say 1570. And she knows how important it is about her incredible encyclopedic knowledge of the 16th century. I just say 1570 and she lights up. Yeah, I mean, I know. I don't want to embarrass her, but I just think we all. Yeah, please. Yeah.
How old was James VI when
He became king of England?
No, when his uncle was assassinated.
Oh, he was not ready to become king. There were many regents after it. I just decided he was probably maybe a teen or even younger. As I say, Scotland's a pretty wild place. I mean, God, I mean, you need a lot of security. You know, it's like, and he made his share of enemies. I mean, it's like, because there was a whole regency. I just thought that was interesting because of the stained glass, and I'm thinking that's weird for a church, but who am I?
Was his Calvinism a problem when he went to Episcopal England?
Yeah, we're going to get into that right away. But right now, I just thought I'd bring up Guy Fawkes Day because that is, as far as I'm aware, still a great holiday. Even though I doubt it has much religious significance nowadays, I don't think they could care. If you read about this, and maybe you go out tonight and you start talking more about the gunpowder plot, that's how most people would probably know it, or the gunpowder conspiracy, and they would say, "Oh yeah," but many of us know, because of Guy Fawkes, who gets the rep for it, there were various conspiracies. They were, I guess, in modern terminology, terrorists. Would be part of this Catholic terrorism because they wanted to get rid of James. Well, what had James done to them? Nothing, but he was a Calvinist. And so he was the enemy. And so by eliminating them and maybe take out members of Parliament, because that is where this gunpowder was. He was going to be speaking to Parliament. So they were going to blow up the thing, and they were really excited. Can you imagine? I mean, I guess there've been some HBO series on this, you know, blowing up, or I mean, there's so much terrorism in it, and you know, that. But the idea of that was almost a disaster for this first Stuart. But instead, of course, they discovered the gunpowder. And apparently, somebody must have squealed on Guy Fawkes. Whatever the case, I don't think they had time for too many appeals. So he was dispatched rather quickly. But the celebration of Guy Fawkes Day has now become an annual occasion, I believe. And if you were an English Catholic, your name was Mud. It's not like they said, "Oh, shucks, I know you all didn't mean any harm." No, I don't think they ever said that. If you were a serious Catholic or one of those Jesuits, not that we love Jesuits now, the Jesuit, and you're going to get it. Yeah, those Jesuits were probably involved in this, but not to judge people. I'm just saying, all of these were possibly involved, but that was stopped.
One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
See, okay, a little other side, yeah, whatever. Anyway, they went down, and our beloved King James I survived the horror that Guy Fawkes had planned, but not to be ugly. I just say it. The idea of coerce was that now we will have a seriously Protestant king, because many of the Anglicans may have thought, that Elizabeth, I'm not sure how serious she is. But somebody from Scotland, boy, now that's some serious Calvinism. They understand what it means to be a Calvinist. And that's one of the factors that when he was coming down, it's like, that's quite a trip, I imagine, coming down by coach. I think it was in the spring. And it was like a happy tour. Everybody was, how you doing? Good to see you, and all that, because married, Protestant, a man, everything they wanted for a king. And all of that is to say they had big plans for him. And when you stop and think about it, that's a nice beginning, or so it would seem. It's not like they're going like, oh, Scott, yuck, I don't want Scott. No, he's male. He's married. And he believes in the word of God. And he has no, and you say, but what about his mother and father? Oh, well, that's different. They're dead. And they were wretched. So this is what do they say now? New beginning. It's like, this is the good Stuart. The others are in hell. Yeah. Not that I want to be judgmental, but there we go. This is going to be the man of our dreams. Well, it didn't turn out that way. Bummer. But on the positive side, here he is. Many of you have been to Hampton Court, I'm sure. That's probably like Disney World now. I'm sure they use it for lots of activities, but it's a great thing to see. And the idea, of course, being that now, some of you remember it was built originally for our old friend Cardinal Wolsey of happy memory. And then it was taken over by those blank Tudors because of his unfortunate demise. And then it became a major royal center. So, of course, all of this now belongs to the Stuart King James. So he invites all of the leaders, 1604, to a meeting about what else? Religion. I don't know how that would have been. I don't think any Jesuits were there. Or anybody who said, I heart the Pope. No. All of this, because those people were outlaws, desperados, whatever you want to say. This is all about, quote unquote, God-fearing clergy, because we want a Bible, the right Bible, and we want none of these Latin Bibles either. We want a serious English Bible, and we want a church that is cleansed why they call Puritans. And so all of this, you notice he's the only one who is basically seated. And some of you will remember Constantine. This is just like him at some conference. It's like, I am the boss. Remember, I'll write you check. You may be a big shot in your diocese, but, you know, I'm head of the church. And who would forget that? Nobody. I mean, from Henry VIII onward, right, head of the church. Isn't Charles defender of the faith still? So this Hampton Conference was supposed to be about molding the church, that is the English church, and all about scripture. And all of us are already thinking about the English Bible. But before we get there, I gotta say something about him. I thought, where would we be without John Knox? I know, everybody loves Calvin, but John Knox is very, very significant. So on trips to Scotland, you can drop that into the conversation, and that will impress our Scottish friends that you know about Scotland. I would hope. Maybe not, but maybe they too are Knox fans or not. John Knox actually had clerical posts in both the England and Scotland. And he underwent a period of education in Calvin's Geneva, where he found what he considered heaven on earth. I love Geneva, Geneva. And why? Because it was all about Calvinism. And you said, gosh, I've got my rosary. Does anybody want to see my rosary in downtown Geneva? Okay, we'll say goodbye to you. You know, Auf Wiedersehen.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, probably more French than German. But yeah, that's true. It's not healthy to be a Roman Catholic in Geneva at that time. And he was very inspired, this John Knox, and he went back. And boy, he got on his high horse. And John Knox, and again, you see this statue at the same place in Edinburgh. It's outside the church, actually. And I'm always thinking, when people go by, Scots or non-Scots, I wonder if they would like, I'd like to be there, and I'd say, do you have questions about John Knox? I know the teacher in me that I want to give them a mini lecture, but I don't think probably people are interested. Maybe I would get a question or two. I don't know. But John Knox, I don't know how to win friends and influence people. I don't think he would exactly be the kind of friendly, pleasant guy and think we're just glad whatever belief system you have, we're happy. It's one way. And boy, he and Mary Queen of Scots, because he goes back to that era, did not get along. And he was talking to her right, as we say in the South, right uppity. I mean, accusing her of being a Jezebel, a temptress, and of course, a follower of Satan on earth, aka the Pope. Yeah. And saying, you better straighten yourself out, sister. I mean, don't you think that's right impertinent? But he somehow survived for a better day, thinking someday she'll get hers. And yeah. But meanwhile, it did not bring her conversion. But the conversion of the people of Scotland continued apace until Scottish Catholics became a minority, significant minority, but minority nevertheless. And of course, by the time James came down to England, the Scottish Catholics were negligible, but they were still a significant minority in England. So, with the strong feelings, and he was brought up in this Knox tradition, regardless of his mother. He wasn't saying, oh, mom always wanted me maybe to be to learn the rosary and all that. No. I mean, all of that. 13 months again, remember? It's not like the teachings of Queen Mary would stay with him in terms of Catholicism, and all that was long gone. Meanwhile, as a result of that conference, this came out, and that was the cover. There have been English Bibles before this, but nothing that would be as spectacular. I dare say this is one of the great accomplishments of this early period. I mean, there are a lot of them. When you think about Shakespeare's plays and all the art and writing of the era. But this was very, very significant in terms of a Bible that is still used by many today. I'm not sure if it's the leading English Bible, but it's certainly got a lot of people to follow it. But when you think about how many and what influence it would have on the language itself, even though, I mean, of course, for some it's outdated and all the rest of it, it became highly important. So that comes out of the meeting. That's why they call it the King James Bible. And it's kind of like Justinian's law code. It's like, I'm the boss, so that's my name. But how much he actually had to do with it, I think you can take that with a grain of salt. But he wanted it, and it was done. But it would take time. God, can you imagine the work? But we had other sections, and the idea was the Old Testaments had to be, I think the New Testament had already been translated and so forth. That had to be revised. And then, of course, think about how long the Old Testament is. And then that had to be done completely. So, King James Bible. And again, I used to always say, and you can always look in your motel room next to the bed. It'll be, I know, dated remark, but in the Holiday Inns of the past, it was right there. So, moving on. Yeah. So, you think, well, everything was just coming up roses and a lot of love there at Hampton. It seemed that way at first, maybe until he opened his mouth. The English sometimes, and you don't have to mention this when you're in Denver, but the English sometimes have a problem with the way the Scots speak. And they consider them sort of rural and barbaric. That's kind of ugly, isn't it? It's like, you ain't had your mind, but no, it's like you people don't know how to speak. So he was, I mean, it came out and he was very Scottish. So they had to deal with it. I mean, he couldn't take speech lessons. I don't think he was ready for that. But he spoke it. And also, he did not give in to all of the Puritans' demands because they thought, given his teaching from Knox and others, that in the words of Cole Porter, anything goes. I mean, basically, we're coming in there and clean it out, Puritans. So we're not going to say a little of this, a little of that, Episcopalians, right? But he said, no bishop, no king. So, you know what you people need to do? Suck it up. And I mean, speaking to, these clergy, and I bet they didn't like it. But if he's king, you'd say yes. Probably a little pouty. But he's not going to put up with that. And you notice also confirmation, right? And priest. So certain aspects of Roman Catholicism would remain thanks to his firmness, because he thought if he went all the way with the Puritans, they wouldn't stop, give them an inch, that kind of thing. So it'll be in English, the services will be in English, and there won't be certain activities, no rosary, no Mary, no purgatory, but there will be other things. And clearly those who are familiar with the Episcopal Church will understand, of course, that there are some similarities, but there are other differences. So he thought he managed it, and I'm sure, what do I say about the Puritans? Pouty, sulking. If I had Rocher's thesaurus with me, but you get the idea. Sullen, yeah. But again, you just have to accept it. Besides, we've got our English Bible. James and Anne had 3 children. And this was the child, Henry Frederick was his name, who was supposed to be king. Died of tuberculosis in his late teens. And he was supposed to be the heir to the throne. He was the eldest of they had 7 children. Only 3 made it. I guess that's not surprising in the 17th century. Various diseases. But making it all the way to the teenage years. And Henry was already sort of strutting around, devoted Protestant, devoted Calvinist. And of course, as the heir to the throne, brought up to be the new king. So to die at that point must have been a terrible shock for his parents. Because that's very interesting that people don't know about that, don't realize the impact that he had made on his family because he lasted so long. Kind of like, remember Henry VII's elder son, Arthur? Yeah, it was that same sort of feeling. This is the one who should have been, but was not. And of course, forgive me, the next one who will now be heir to the throne, who is familiar because of our friends, arf, arf, those who bark and who we love so dearly. Yes, Charles. Here he is. How do you like that outfit?
Nice.
Yeah. He is all done up in those collars. Yeah. Again, I don't know if it's comfortable or not. Would you think? And those tights. I mean, yeah. Again, I'm just not sure about all of it, but he was now, and we're going to have a lot to say about him. But Prince Charles, now the heir to the throne, with the death of his brother. And of course, as Frank pointed out correctly, we think of her, Elizabeth, who was very close to her father for many years. Elizabeth's a very interesting person, being female, of course. She is going to be the product of a quote unquote political marriage, but apparently was a happy one. You know what they say, for good or ill, for all the parts that come with life together, and she would get it. That's why we call her the Winter Queen, because their reign in Bohemia, which is a beautiful, beautiful part, yes. And who would not want to be in Bohemia? Although I expect she had to do some language studies in preparing for that. But all of this brings us into why would this be important? Well, her husband, the young king of Bohemia, was a Protestant. So it seemed nice that this king, young king, Frederick, would now be married to the princess from England. Are there any promises of payment? Well, of course, there's always a dowry. You're going to get some checks in there. This isn't this is not a Hallmark movie. So they're payments. But does this mean we're going in there? No, not necessarily. What happened, however, is going to have to do with, and this is very important for you, those of you who are conscious of dates. Have you ever wanted a war to turn out on time? Of course you have. I've got one for you today. 1618 to 1648. You could go out tonight on the streets of Auburn, say, would you name me as they come out, And then you say, could you name me a war that lasted 30 years? And they'll say, of course, in my dream. 30 years war, sir. Yeah. Yeah. See? The idea, though, is that she was associated with that, and that's why it was during the winter, and they made a hasty departure after a year or two. Or as they remember the old movie, the Catholics are coming, the Catholics are coming. It's all about Catholics versus Protestants. But Bohemia, well, who wouldn't want it? Everybody wants Bohemia. And
where is Bohemia?
it's right over there.
Is it still there?
Oh, God, I'll get Frank all in a dither.
Can't have that.
No, I want him protected, secure. Czech Republic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want him
Don't be
upset.
confused with Slovaks.
No. No. They're not there.
And it's not There, I mean, it's a region now of,
Yeah, the Bohemians, yeah.
it was a country.
But it had been Protestant until this period. And the Catholics, thanks to, the emperor,
Holy Roman.
yeah, wanted to take over all this because it's like going to a pep rally, get fired up. And so it's like, then there's nobody saying, can we all live in peace? And,
No.
this is when you got some serious religious differences. And so you can't say you can go to your church and we'll go to ours. No, 17th century is all about it's our way or you can go to hell. Yeah.
And we'll help you get there.
Yes. Oh, a map. I knew it. I know.
Comes to the
See,
rescue.
Lee, I mean, I try to think of all he needs. Yeah. So we think about, I think it's kind of interesting to think they can't just be satisfied with what they already have
No.
because they want to take the rest of it. And it's those blankety blank Spanish.
Yep, Philip second.
And they are Catholics. And it's not like they're gonna go like, well, shucks, we don't mean to interfere, but could you please bring back the rosary or the statue of the Virgin Mary or something? No. These are fighting. Yeah. So all of this has to do with the issues of religion and power. And Elizabeth, that is to say, the daughter of King James and her husband are out of there. And where did they go? One of everybody's favorite Dutch cities, The Hague. On your trips to The Hague, there's so many reasons to know, the International Court of Justice and all there is. But you might want to be aware of that and ask questions of the tour guide about the residents of Queen Mary because they lived there a long time. I mean, because they're not going back to Bohemia. I mean, they can call themselves, there are a lot of, in Portugal, there used to be lots of ex-kings and queens who would hang out there because it is not, well, of course, we all know it's very nice in Portugal. It's a great place to live if you're in exile. You have your retirement checks coming in. So you're well covered. It's not like you're like having to get any kind of
They did
relief.
They did leave with the Czech crown jewels, by the way.
Indeed, they were very significant. So the 30 Years' War is significant because it came and ended on time, and at the same time led to a certain amount of intervention. I can't let my little girl be hurt like this. And shall we say she was, well, unregistered Protestant lobbyist, I would say, there in England. It's like, who can say no to a daughter? It's like, Daddy, can't you just send them some help? I mean, they are such nice people. They love the Lord. And they are being threatened by ruthless papists. And they don't need much. That's what they all say that in wartime, don't they?
Yeah.
So it will be a very, very serious problem. I mean, James had lots of problems, but I'm just saying that was one. And it's like a lot of people in England talk a good game. We love Protestants everywhere. But then when they start asking, well, if you love him so much, do we have to have a kind of bond rally or go out and sell something, have a raffle? I mean, you got to provide because wars cost. I mean, they're right expensive. So, and it's not like the good old days. Elizabeth's not around. And money can be a bit tight because I'll be honest with you. Remember Queen Anne's dress that I call it a dress. I don't know what it is. But she had a lot of those. And I mean, clothes like that are expensive. And apparently, it's like having a Bloomingdale or Saks credit card. It's like sometimes, not us, we're all very wise with money. But I'm not sure the Queen was always frugal. And that could create great problems. Meanwhile, I can't leave James without mentioning his greatest hits. That is to say, some of his writings, because these are actually in print today. Yeah, I mean, they were printed back then. And that's why the copies that I'm showing are actually available. The idea being that he was more or less proclaiming that he was answerable only to God. They considered him a Scots individual and sort of grotesque. They'd gotten over. Remember that old song? There's a song called "The Thrill Is Gone," and well, some of us know that song. But it's very sad for those of us who are romantics, because you know what that means. The party's over. Time to call it a day. And that was sort of like Parliament had gotten over him. He talks funny, and he loved deer hunting. And you say, why is that important? Well, it can be sort of gross sometimes. Have you heard of people who will just cut it open and then get down? Okay, I don't need to proceed with that. No, dismiss that. Okay, think about wonderful cuisine. He had lots of bad habits, but he seemed somewhat grotesque in many ways. And of course, always wanting money to pay off the shopping bills, to help the Protestant cause in Bohemia, and more or less to say, well, wait a minute. I thought there it is. And to anybody who questioned him, he would say, God and me are in control. And that's called the true law of free monarchy. And it was really, a big deal. And he liked to read it to Parliament. Can you imagine? You can imagine somebody sitting there. They might even go to sleep, while he was talking. Probably hurt his feelings, but something tells me you could just, sort of like the lecturer, just, go right on. Not give them a hard time, because they thought that was malarkey, baloney, because, that might have worked for Elizabeth, but hey, you're not that. This is 17th century and you're a Scot. And dirty Scot at that. So basically, the true law of free monarchy means God, me, and you. And I'm answerable only to God. Now you're saying, what about Parliament, France? Well, the French are in a better position. The French kings are in better position if they want to be what they called absolute monarchs, or divine right monarchs. And kings of this sort, for example, if he brought that to Puritan parliamentarians, and they would say, well, that's monarchy. You're not just answerable to God. Yes, you are answerable to God, but you could go to hell if you don't straighten out, because you are not consulting us about your policies. And we do not like it. Oh, and another old movie. We're mad as hell. We're not going to take it anymore. That was in a movie. And yeah, 1976. But we don't have to know that for dates. So don't worry about that. So anyway, the true law free monarchy. And of course, what was everybody's favorite in the 17th century? Witches. Yeah. We all know about Salem. So this was very, I think it's hot at this time. I mean, in terms of people talking about it, like, oh, they're around, they're everywhere, you know, that kind of thing. So he was quite the demonologist. Again, the idea being that he himself was a bad believer. You know, King himself is writing so about the subject. I love the way they were written by the high money print. You see that on the title? Because I'm thinking they didn't just say James Stewart, you know, yours. No. You got all your titles. Justin, Defender of the Faith. Yep. So, didn't ask the Pope about that, but it 1603, I think that is. So, all of that brings us this figure, and I think this is in the National Gallery, maybe National Portrait Gallery. The Duke of Buckingham, George Villiers. I couldn't deal with all of his favorites, but this seems to be the main one. We've talked about this with Edward II way back when, 1307 to 1327. So the idea is these favorites, sometimes upstarts, who gain the confidence of the king, and then everybody, I can feel a cliche attacking me, gets bent out of shape. See, I know how to talk street language. So I apologize. I don't want you to think I go around talking like that all the time, but please. I'm just amazed to think about how those members of Parliament, even in the House of Commons, resented this upstart. His name was George Villiers, and the king was quite taken with him. And he was a new individual who would have great influence with the king. He would last until the early years of Charles, when he would die by assassination. But he was given the title, there he is, Duke of Buckingham. And Duke of Buckingham was a big deal. I mean, be called like Count of Auburn or something. I don't know. It's like, and then you strut around, and those people in the House of Commons, the House of Lords, upstart, no good Nick. And they resent him even more because well, the king says this and the king says that. And you remember this from the reign of Edward II. It's like if he had been somewhat more tactful, it might have helped. I mean, he had a great estate, wife, children, the whole bit. To say that Villiers was aggressive is to say it mildly. And James apparently hung on his every word. And of course, this can involve not only money, but also power and control. And of course, he might go before Parliament and say, well, the king says you all need to get quiet and behave. And they think, how dare you? Because people who were in Parliament thought they were pretty darn important. So, shall we say we have a power struggle going on, and it becomes worse and worse because they talk about, and this is a very interesting phenomenon, that even by the time James was in his 50s, he was getting into, I guess I'd call it premature senility, although, I mean, I can't imagine someone in his 50s being senile, but there, I mean, he was less and less in control. And the assumption is that Villiers, the Duke of Buckingham, had more and more power over it. But Charles was going to be king. But that didn't mean that the latter years were only a matter of concern for the members of Parliament. The involvement in the 30 Years' War was costly, but not particularly significant. More or less, it's that kind of interesting about James. I don't want to call James a pacifist exactly, but he was not today's parlance hawk. So I guess to make his daughter happy, he sent limited support for the Protestants. Go Big B, Bohemia, yeah. But all to no avail. Except I don't think Parliament liked it. And I mean, it's really unpleasant. Remember the Parliament, Commons and Lords, they could not put themselves in session. If the king got irritated, and I'm sure he did many times, he sent them home. And they couldn't just come right back. Well, he said so. So those were not happy conditions. Secondly, this effort at what they call now rapprochement with Spain. Many of us remember the happy days with Philip II when he was married to Queen Mary. You remember that? Yeah. How happy. Love will keep us together. That was an old song. So the idea was that we can bring all that back. And sometimes I think maybe that was Buckingham. So Buckingham, you can't believe this. I mean, I find it. They decided maybe they just need to really court the Spanish. And you say, but they're of a different religious tradition. Yeah, but when these young people see each other, it'll be like falling in love, Homework. It doesn't happen that way. So the idea of creating a rapprochement because of that does not work out. the idea that the heir to the throne will marry a Spanish princess. That might have worked for Mary, but that was then and this is now. The Spanish aren't going to marry some English who's going to hell. I mean, yeah. No, Rose. I mean, no. So that's out of the question. And then, of course, that becomes, I mean, can you imagine? And the people in Parliament, what they're thinking, they're going to boo his. You want to bring a Spanish Catholic in here to marry our future king? That's unacceptable, sir. Your Majesty, that we love you very much. So ultimately, he married, you guessed it, a French woman. And yet she was Catholic. And they arranged for her to have separate religious facilities. And we have a lot more to say about Henrietta Maria. But I guess she had to take some English 101. But she came over there, and I think the dowry, it's nice to have checks coming in. So I'm thinking dowries are good things for kings who are poor. So all of this is arranged in the latter years. And remember, the king already has, what do we say, egg in his face for that Spanish mess. Because the Spanish, and think about this, we're getting into the period that they are both imperial powers, so they already have a number of unpleasant exchanges on the Atlantic. So this is just adding fuel to the fire. God, I used so many cliches today. Forgive me.
Yeah.
But the idea is that nothing James wants to do. Oh, and then, of course, we want to have one England and Scotland. I love you all. You're all my people. And the English Parliament says, you're kidding. You have your kingdom up there, which is your business. So you can be king of England and king of Scotland. But the idea that those people would be part of us, you keep it to yourself. So we're going to see all this happen later, but you'll have to come back for that because it's just not going to happen today. Because the Parliament, remember, this is English. It's not like, oh, yeah, I have a lot of family in Scotland and we love them to death. No. That goes back a lot of time. In case you don't believe me, you can ask them. Yeah, they will tell you. Because it's amazing how these things continue for many of the people. The legacy, the Jacobean period. And again, I didn't get a chance to discuss that, but I guess you were aware about, you think of Midsummer's Night's Dream was written in this period. And maybe those yellow and black books would have something in it that you could read up on there. You couldn't get enough of that. The colonial interest, the establishment, for good or ill, of the first English colonies in North America would be a product of this period because, shoot, there's money, profit motive. So when we think about that particular period, we have to remember Queen Elizabeth had dreamt of this and encouraged exploration, but now it's really ready. And there must have been a lot of money in it because of the evil weed Yes, boy, howdy, when they started producing that tobacco. We get the tea from India, but that tobacco will come from those colonies, and people take right to it. And meanwhile, of course, monarchy and parliament, a bad relationship. But it wasn't worked out. He was just there. Left, to use a word that's, I suppose, more used in medical circles, fester, in terms of relationship. Neither side is going to back down and say, "Oh, you're right, Jamie. We just love you." No. Lords and Commons both. And remember, if you're up late one night, you can always read The True Law of Free Monarchy. Or maybe you can just go online and read it that way. I want to encourage all scholarship. Here's the thing. And who do we have? Sir Walter Raleigh. Yes, and Raleigh cigarettes. And yet now we're thinking about another kind of smoking, but I won't get into that. Let's just say that this is Sir Walter enjoying it. But one thing you can say about King James, you're not doing it in my court. And I have to tell you, I once had a student, well, probably more than once, who actually dipped in my class. You cannot imagine. I mean, Lee, you might have seen somebody do that because he said, "Well, I get kind of bored." That hurt me. I had to go to I had to get
That's a blow.
yeah, I know. I was hurt. I wasn't angry. I was just hurt. That he needed, and he would bring this can like a platoon, and then, yeah, nobody can believe this stuff nowadays. But yeah, that was just as nasty as it can be. But that was part of the green something. But anyway, they had the little cans.
Skulls. Oh, yes.
Go! Yeah. And they go, oh. And I said, how do you do it? No. Yeah, not pretty sight, but yeah. But that's it. I just found this thing. See how he's dressed. I see he's there. And it's looking like nobody city serving in the background. Maybe gonna bring in a little beverage, adult beverage. And she said, yeah, this good stuff. Yeah.
Is that his stash on the table?
I'm sorry.
Is that his stash on the table?
The stash. Oh, I don't well, the tobacco.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want you to think
No,
that was anything
no,
like that.
no.
But yeah, tobacco would be very important. You say you would probably be able to get as much as you wanted. But again, King James thought it was disgusting. So, I mean, apparently he didn't feel the same way about sucking in deer innards, but, you know, each person do his own choice of gross activities, but it was very big and very profitable. So Walter Raleigh, for example, never went to any of these places, but he was the promoter and developer. And he did very well under Queen Elizabeth. And in the early years of King James, and he ran afoul. And after a prolonged stay in the Tower with his family, he had to be executed. So, he was executed. So all of this is to say it's been important period. And he would, that is King James. I think he lived 2 or 3 years after his wife, the Queen, and he had Charles about as prepared as he was going to be, because that is not a happy period. And Charles was, sadly, do they still call him, Marnie, the Blessed Charles, King and Martyr? King Charles I in the Anglican Church. They used to check my listing if I think I'm right on that. It's very, very interesting because everybody knows, and I know you do, 1649. And yeah, you just keep on with your fine work. You're an inspiration to every scholar in the room. Yeah, 1649, and we're going to get there coming up. Please come back next week if you will. And thanks to all of you for coming today. And I'll see you next time.
What's that headed guy there?
Huh?
What's-
Oh, he is a
what's he
servant.
about? Hey, sir.
You see the mug?
Is he just rushing in with more?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I think he's giving him beverages, I think beverage service. Yeah, because I think he's sitting there and going, having a drag and then say, yeah, man, come on, I want my beverage. Oh, no, I think he was part of the, he just a servant.
It is nice to have a servant.
Yeah, because I don't think he would be, but he seems blown away like, man, this is good stuff.
Oh, yeah, you're not convincing me that's just tobacco.
Oh,
It's just a-
man.
I know a pipe when I see one.